Hey, good evening. Thank you again for joining tonight and taking time out of your busy day to learn more about financial aid and financial aid here at Rosemont College. I'm looking at many of the names on the screen and recognize them from the application review process. Thank you for submitting an application to Rosemont. Hunter and I and the admissions committee have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you through your applications, meeting many of you on campus, and being engaged in the admission process. And this is another step of that. So I applaud you and your families for taking time out of your night to join us. Kim Anderson, our Director of Financial Aid, and Teresa Hammond, who are here with us, our Assistant Director of Financial Aid, have truly a great presentation for you guys tonight. If you have questions regarding financial aid, you can enter them down in, I believe it's called like Q&A. Yes, Q&A. And if you have admission questions about the process or your application or next steps, Hunter Greenwood, our assistant director, and I will be here to answer them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim Anderson, our Director of Financial Aid. Kim?
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rosemont Introduction to Financial Aid. We're going to provide you a very high level of the 24-25 FAFSA overview. I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay. Okay, the 24-25 FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, that's used to determine the student's federal aid eligibility. The types of aid that you may be eligible for are grants, scholarships, work study, and loans. You can complete the FAFSA by going to studentaid.gov, or you can use the QR code that's listed there on the website. Now, typically, the FAFSA is available October the 1st, but because of the overhaul changes to the FAFSA, it's expected to be available by December 31st. A FSA ID is required for student, parent of record, and all contributors. Rosemont College school code is 003360. The tax information is for 2 years prior. So that means you'll use the 2022 federal tax information. And you'll hear terms like the FTI. What the FTI is, that's federal tax information, and you will have to use that information for your 24-25 FAFSA. You'll also hear acronyms like the FDX, which is the Future Act Direct Data Exchange. And I'll explain more to you about that. Next slide, please. Okay, so the changes for the FAFSA for 24-25. The FAFSA will be shorter and will include a submission consent. And so what that means is there will be a data exchange from the IRS to the Department of Education, giving the IRS permission to pass on the tax information to the Department of Education. Hold on one second. Students must initiate the application and invite other contributors. And I'll explain to you what the contributors are. Each person will require their own FSA ID to complete their section of the FAFSA. To help identify who will be the parent of record, there will be a parent wizard. Parents who are required to be on the FAFSA are the parents who provide more than 50% financial support. It's not the parents whom the student resides with. Now, this is a change from previous years. So in previous years, the parent of record was the parent that the student resided with. The new change is the parents provide more than 50% financial support. So when we're talking about the contributors are a parent for single parents or married filing jointly, a second parent, married filing separately or other status, such as divorce, or the student's spouse. So once the student completes their section, the student will send the parent or the contributor an invitation so that they can complete their section of the FAFSA. So in order for the contributor to complete their section, they must also log in with their own FSA ID, provide answers to their questions, give consent, and sign the form. So the contributors also must provide consent so that the tax information can be transferred over to the Department of Education. And that's where the FADDX comes into play. That's the exchange of information from one agency to the other. Can we go to the next screen? Okay, who belongs on the FAFSA? The student, the biological parent, and the legal spouse of the biological parent. When the parents are divorced or separated or never married and do not live together, only one parent must be on the FAFSA. The parent of record is the parent that provides more financial support to the student. So this is another change. In previous years, as I indicated previously, the parent where the student resided, that was the parent of the record. Now for 24-25, the parent of the record is the parent that provides more financial support to the student. If the parent of the record is remarried at the time of filling out the FAFSA, then the parent's spouse will also be a contributor, and we will also need their tax information, which is for 2022. That contributor will also need to have their own FSA ID in order to complete their own section of the FAFSA. Now, if the student or a contributor does not approve the consent of information being exchanged from IRS to the Department of Education, the student is no longer eligible for Title IV federal funds. However, if the student and the contributor does provide consent, again, the exchange of information, the tax information from the IRS to the Department of Education, so that we can determine what type of eligibility the student is eligible for. Once that is approved by the student and the contributor, then we at that time can determine what the student is eligible for. Only at that time, if the student and the contributor have both given consent, then we will be able to provide financial eligibility or determine what financial eligibility is for the student. If a student and a contributor leaves the application inactive for more than 45 days, the application becomes null and void, and you will have to start the application all over again. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay. Some common FAFSA issues or delays. So some common delays that we typically run into when completing after we receive the FAFSA, such as the student's name, date of birth, and social security number does not match what you provided to the admissions department. So you may have, for an example, hyphenated name, and when you completed your application for admissions, you did not include your hyphenated name. So for an example, if your hyphenated name was Kim Anderson Jones, you put Kim Anderson Jones on the FAFSA, but you only put Kim Jones on the admissions application, there's a mismatch, and so the records will not match, and so that will be a delay of us receiving your information. Missing high school information. You must indicate on the FAFSA what high school you received your diploma from, the name of the high school, the city, and the state. Student and or parent signature is missing from the FAFSA. And also parent and contributors have not completed their individualized section of the FAFSA. Also, we will find that students will have completed the FAFSA, but they neglected to put Rosemont school code, which is 003360, onto the FAFSA. We will never receive your FAFSA, although you completed it, without having the school code on there. So you want to make sure that when you're completing the FAFSA, although it's shorter and it's supposed to be more user-friendly, you want to make sure that you are not missing any of these items. And you want to make sure that whatever information you provided to admissions is the same information that is on your FAFSA. So now at this point, oh, we have one more screen. Okay, hold on. Let me talk about the Student Aid Index. Okay, the Student Aid Index, that's replacing the expected family contribution. And some of you may already know the expected family contribution, the EFC, was a way how the Office of Financial Aid determined what the student was eligible for. So they're replacing the expected family contribution with the Student Aid Index. And so we will be able to determine what the student is eligible for by looking at the Student Aid Index. Now, with the Student Aid Index, we have a potential of receiving or having a negative 1,500. I know that you probably don't know what that means, but a negative 1,500 is like a zero EFC. Negative 1,500 and a zero EFC means that you will receive full eligibility, the maximum financial aid that is available to you. That's all that means. And so now we're going to turn it over to Teresa Hammond.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we just want to take a little second here. I want to pause, and I definitely want to show everyone my appreciation for joining us tonight. We only have a few more slides to go through with you all. And at this point, I want to encourage everyone to pull out your cell phones, open the camera on your phone, and get ready to aim it towards the screen. You've seen a few of our QR codes in some of the previous slides, but there are some treats coming up with some of the QR codes, and we don't want you to miss out. So get your phones ready, open the camera, get ready to aim it towards the screen. One last thing we want to go over before we talk about the types of aid is the federal verification process. Federal verification is a random selection by the Department of Ed. It does require us as the institution to verify the accuracy of the information that a student or the contributors would have put on the FAFSA. So if you are selected for verification, not only will you know by reviewing the summary of your FAFSA after submitting it, but we will reach out to you through email and through your aid package to let you know that you need to submit some additional information if applicable. Okay, so types of aid. You've done your FAFSA. Now, what kind of aid are you going to get? It is important to note that a federal aid offer is financial assistance. I know no one wants loans, which is completely fine. You are in no way obligated to accept federal loans, but we are obligated to offer them to you as a part of your eligibility as determined by the FAFSA. So different types of aid, we're going to go on this journey. There is a federal direct subsidized loan that's generally offered to students who demonstrate financial need as determined by the FAFSA. There's no interest charged to the borrower while the student is enrolled at least half time or during the periods of grace or deferment. There's the federal direct unsubsidized loan. Now, this loan is for students who do not demonstrate financial need. So this is something that almost everyone would be able to get. Even a graduate student could get this unsubsidized loan. Interest does accumulate during all periods of enrollment. So when you're looking at your financial aid offer, you can determine, okay, I think I might want a subsidized loan that I've been offered, but I might want to decline my unsubsidized loan. It really depends on how you plan on funding your education and the types of assistance that you want to utilize. Some students may also be able to receive student employment, otherwise known as federal work study. It is a federally subsidized program designed to encourage part-time employment of undergraduate students who demonstrate financial need. So this is another program for students who demonstrate need as determined by the completion of the FAFSA. These funds allow students to earn supplemental income that you could put towards your educational expenses or however you see fit. It's important to note that federal work study does not go directly towards paying any kind of bill owed for your education. It is a regular part-time job that a student can have, and what you do with your pay is completely up to the student. So I've done a lot of talking, but the Department of Ed has a wonderful website called studentaid.gov, and they explain all of this in a lot more detail. So if everyone would take their phone, open the camera, aim it at the QR code, and then hit the link to open it, it will take you directly to studentaid.gov. It's a wonderful website. It's the website where you complete your FAFSA, some financial aid processes, as well as it has a wealth of information, and it will go over those different types of aid, the grants, the loans, work study. It's a wealth of information. So, okay, I received my financial aid offer. How am I supposed to pay for this? So we want to go over filling the gap, some options for alternative financing. Don't worry, the good stuff is coming towards the end. So there are different options. A student might receive grants, student loans, and then you look at all that information and you say, okay, I still need additional assistance. There are a few options here. You have something called the Federal Direct Plus loan. This plus loan is a parent loan. Only the parent can borrow. It is available to parents based on your credit. So if you click the link here, you can read more about it. I would not suggest anyone to apply for this loan just yet. It's rather early, but you can find out more information about the Parent Plus loan. If you were approved based on your credit, you would be able to utilize this parent loan not to exceed the cost of attendance. So aside from whatever aid the student received, if there's any gap, this parent loan could be an option to fill that gap. Likewise, there are alternative and or private loans. So the student, again, has received all of their financial aid assistance from the Department of Ed, maybe some institutional funding, perhaps even some outside funding. There's still a bit of a gap. Alternative or private loans could be an option if you choose to help fill the gap. Our website is a wonderful resource. If you want to scan this QR code, it will take you to rosemont.edu, where you can find out more information about alternative loans and even go through a few clicks to see some different loan options that are more popular for some of the Rosemont students. So we were talking about filling the gap, right? So this is the easiest equation I could think of to help you understand what your out-of-pocket costs might be. So you receive your cost of attendance. That's going to include your tuition, any fees, your living expenses, so living on campus, eating on campus. All of that is going to make up attendance, how much it costs for you to attend school. Then you want to subtract all grants and scholarships. Don't touch the loans just yet. But any grants and scholarships that you might have received, subtract that from your cost of attendance. What's left is your estimated out-of-pocket cost. If you're able to handle that, wonderful. The college offers payment plan options that you can break down that out-of-pocket cost to make sure that you're paying monthly to handle the gap. If that estimated out-of-pocket cost is not something that you're able to handle and you think you need a little bit more assistance, only then would we encourage you to go in and subtract out the loans that you've been offered. We only want you to borrow as a last resort. So here's the good stuff, the free money. Grants and scholarships are free money to help you pay for school. They're often referred to as gift aid because they are forms of financial aid that do not need to be repaid. Many times grants are need-based, while scholarships are generally merit-based. Grants and scholarships can come from different organizations like the federal government, the state, private or nonprofit organizations. We'll go over a few of those options in a future slide. We do want you to remember it is imperative when you're looking at grants and scholarships to remember to complete your FAFSA as early as possible. No one is late this year because the FAFSA will not be available until December 31st. But as soon as it becomes available, go. The light is green. We want you to complete your FAFSA. Be mindful of all deadlines. I'll go over some deadlines, for instance, like for the Pennsylvania State Grant, but always be mindful of your deadlines so that you don't miss out on funding because you slept a deadline. We encourage you to research all state grant requirements. We know not everyone is a Pennsylvania student. There are certainly other grants available from different states. If you're coming to Pennsylvania from another state, perhaps your state will allow their state grant to travel with you to the state of Pennsylvania. So you do want to be mindful of your state's grant requirements. And then check with your place of worship. Parents, check with your jobs. Check with your local government. You are young people, you are entering voting age. So you want to hit up your local government and let them know, if you want my vote, pay for my college. So those are just a few ideas that we have for ways to get some outside funding. When it comes to federal and state grants, federal grants from completing the FAFSA, some of them are the federal Pell Grant, and then the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, otherwise referred to as SEOG. We would determine your eligibility for those grants simply by you completing the FAFSA. Once you complete the FAFSA, it will let you know immediately if you are eligible for the federal Pell Grant. When you receive an aid offer from the institution, we would include any kind of SEOG eligibility, but that determination is made by you completing a FAFSA. Then for those that are permanent residents of the state of Pennsylvania, our great state, there is the Pennsylvania State Grant. They do have a FAFSA filing deadline of May 1st, but we know that everyone is going to spend their New Year's Eve completing their FAFSA in December, so we don't have to worry about May 1st. And then eligibility for this grant is based on your need determination from the FAFSA. So whatever the FAFSA determines that you're eligible for as far as need goes, you would more than likely be eligible for the Pennsylvania State Grant. Again, it's awarded to Pennsylvania residents only. Another thing to note about the Pennsylvania State Grant, just like the FAFSA is going through an overhaul, the Pennsylvania State Grant is going through, or that agency rather, is going through an overhaul as well. You used to be able, upon completing your FAFSA, to click a button that says, yes, take me to the Pennsylvania State Grant application. But because of the changes this year, I don't believe that button is going to be available. Don't hold me to it. I just got this information today, but I don't believe that button is going to be available. They are going to send, they as in the Pennsylvania State Grant Agency, it might come out as FIA to you all. They are going to send emails based on the email that you provided, the FAFSA, to all students, letting you know that you can go to their portal and complete their application. So it's not going to be as streamlined as it has been in the past. It will return to being streamlined, but this is just a really pivotal year and everyone's still trying to get the flow together. So just be mindful to not ignore any emails from the Pennsylvania State Grant Agency. If you are a resident within the city limits of Pittsburgh, there is Pittsburgh Promise. There are quite a few if you are a resident of the District of Columbia, DC. There is a grant. I believe there is a grant for students coming from Ohio, even I believe Vermont, Massachusetts. It's just important for you to check with your state to see what your state grant options may be, if it can travel out of your state to the state of Pennsylvania with you, if you're not already a permanent resident of Pennsylvania. All right, this has been a mouthful. Here are the treats. We are almost finished. So these are some outside scholarship resources. I know it's only 3, but within these 3 websites, there are a multitude of options. These websites are like a launching pad for you to research outside scholarships. We're going to do our part with making sure that you receive your federal aid offer, even your institutional offer, but you have to do your job to bring in any kind of outside funding to offset that estimated out-of-pocket cost that we talked about earlier. Help your parents out. So please scan these QR codes. We have Niche, we have Scholarship America, and College Board, and these are just a few that I could find with a quick Google search. So scan these QR codes, save them in your on your computers, on your phones, so that you can begin now your search for outside scholarship funding. I'm going to give 2 seconds for you guys to finish scanning these QR codes. And I will say, don't worry, we went over a lot of information tonight, but this is not the last time you're going to hear from myself and Miss Anderson. So it's okay. So I told you we weren't going to leave you alone, and we don't plan on it. We are going to be with you every month, starting in February. You will receive further options to register for some of the financial aid webinars that we have planned. We plan on being with you every month, all the way up until you arrive on campus to start your freshman semesters. So we're going to have a welcome and Q&A session in February. So a general timeline, you would complete your FAFSA as early as possible, December 31st for New Year. And then the Department of Education is going to make your FAFSA information available to the institution in about January. So then around February is when we anticipate being able to provide you with the result of all of that, the result of all your 15 minutes of hard work completing your FAFSA. And then we're going to do a welcome and Q&A session. Hopefully by then we'll be able to have some award packets out. If not, then we'll be able to provide you with a more definite timeline. Things are delayed this year for every institution, essentially. So we want to make sure that we're keeping in contact with you so that you don't feel abandoned, knowing that we are with you all the way through this process. Then March 14th, we're going to go back over filling the gap. You have your aid offer. How are you going to pay for the rest of it? We're going to help you try and figure it out. So we're going to go over filling the gap with some more resources about loan funding, grant funding, outside scholarship resources, just making sure that we're touching bases with you all so that you understand what your obligations are with your estimated out-of-pocket costs. Then in April, there's going to be a parent session. We know that parents are busy, so that one is in the morning at 10 a.m. So you all can meet with Ms. Anderson, or the parents rather, can meet with Ms. Anderson with your cup of coffee in the morning and some other key offices. We know parents have different questions that students might not think to ask. So that's really just going to be a session where parents can get their questions answered at a higher level from some very important people on campus, including Ms. Anderson. Then in May, we have a verification webinar. We spoke about verification briefly, but verification is not a process that applies to every single student. Remember, it's a random selection. So we want to make sure that we're going back over that with students that are randomly selected. So we are going to have a webinar session for verification just to make sure that you guys are not experiencing any delays from submitting documents that have been requested. So again, do not worry. This is just an overview of the Save the Date. We will be sending out a calendar so that you guys can save it to your computers, put it on your refrigerators. And we will be sending out registration links for all of these webinars. So you'll hear from us again. And then we are available, myself and Ms. Anderson. I know that sometimes with these webinars, you have perhaps some personal information that you want to discuss. We do want you at this time to put any questions that you have in the Q&A section. We're going to go over your questions. But if your question is something more personal, if it's something that requires more time, we want you to connect with us and not ask your question in an open forum like this. So pull out the phone, open your camera, aim it at the QR code, and go ahead and make an appointment with myself. You'll be able to speak with myself or Ms. Anderson for a 15-minute one-on-one session. We can do Zoom. If you're local, you can come visit us in the main building, that pretty building in the picture, or we can arrange a phone call. And here we are, the questions. I see that there are 3 in the Q&A box. So we do want to devote some time. I'm going to stop talking to see if anyone else has anything to say. We're going to devote some time to your questions. Before I start reading out any questions, did anyone else have anything to add?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Just wanted to mention that although the FAFSA will be available by December 31st, you can now, at this time, complete your FSA ID information, because that takes 3 days for them to verify that information. And so when December 31st arrives, you will have already received the approval of your FSA ID. You can just go right in, log in to studentaid.gov and go ahead and complete your FAFSA. You would not have to wait. That's it for me.
Okay, so I see there have already been some answers. I believe our friends in admissions have been going through, but here's one that seems like it hasn't been answered. This might be more for admissions. It says, less of a FAFSA question, more of an overall financial aid question. If we applied for the Cornelian Scholarship and we do not get selected for an interview, will we be informed of the decision? Follow up, can we anticipate an answer if we do not get selected for an interview? Would someone from admissions like to respond to that so that the group can hear the answer?
Absolutely, and great question. If you've applied for the Cornelian Scholarship, so first, if you've applied and haven't completed your application, you can still complete it through January 15th. At January 15th, the Cornelian Committee will begin reviewing scholarship applications, and shortly after, we'll invite finalists to campus for a final interview. And just as a reminder, to complete a Cornelian application, it's a 500-word essay or more on any type of service you've done and how it connects to Cornelian's mission, as well as a letter of recommendation that you could have from a coach or a guidance counselor or a teacher, kind of echoing your commitment to service to others. It's a great opportunity, and it's a full tuition scholarship. So I know I've seen a few names on the call so far that I know at least have a Cornelian applicant in. I encourage all of you to submit and finish the app.
And John, while you're there, they're asking, where do they go to complete the scholarship? I'm assuming they mean the scholarship application.
If you didn't complete it through the initial application process when you're applying to the college, you could email your additional essay and your letter of recommendation to admissions@rosemont.edu. Hunter will put that in the chat, so everyone has it. And Hunt, maybe you could even include a link to the Cornelian page or just a description of what's on the website for everyone. But it's a great opportunity, really engaging program. You get to work with some really great folks on campus, and really right off the bat, you're considered kind of like a student leader from day one. Our Cornelian scholars are very involved, and certainly like demonstrate day in and day out a commitment to service to others.
Okay, and then we have one for us. Ms. Anderson has been rocking with responding to some of you guys' answers already, but here's one that just came in. I created my FAFSA account on 12/5, but have not received anything back regarding verification. Should I reach out to someone about this? So when you say you created your FAFSA account, I assume you're referring to your FSA ID. You should have received an email directly from the Department of Ed once you created that FSA ID, and then you won't utilize it until it's time to complete the FAFSA. So I would go back to studentaid.gov, make sure that you're able to log into that website itself. The same login to the website is the same information, the FSA ID, which is the username, and the password that you will use to complete the FAFSA once it's available. So if you've created your FSA ID account, make sure that you're able to log into studentaid.gov, but then you're just going to wait until you're able to complete the FAFSA. If you're referring to verification, as we went over in the slides, you would not possibly be selected for federal verification until you completed your FAFSA. So at this point, no one is selected for verification. That is a random selection that will happen once your FAFSA is completed. I hope I answered that question for you. And then all the questions are gone. Okay. So if there is nothing else, and if no one else has anything to add to our presentation today, I personally would like to thank you all for joining us. Thank you for committing your time to Rosemont College, to our team. We look forward to speaking with you some more in the future, and financial aid will be with you throughout the months so that you are successful going through the process. John, Kim, do you guys want to say any last words?
Just thank you to you, Teresa, and Kim, for being here with us and our students tonight. Students and families, thank you for hopping on. Again, we've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know so many of you through the application process, and look forward to continuing to get to know you and your families throughout the rest of this admission cycle. And I think on behalf of all of us, we wish you luck through the college search process, and hope to see you at Rosemont next fall.
Excellent. So if that is all, I'm sorry, Kim.
No, again, ditto to my colleague. We are here again, as Teresa mentioned. We're here with you every step of the way. No question is too small. So please reach out to our office. We are available for you. So thank you again.
Yep.
Thank you all for joining us. Oh, sorry, Hunter's there.
Teresa, I just wanted to mention that I put in the chat for anybody who's interested in the Cornelian Scholarship, the link to it. But what we'll do is we have the attendance sheet as well. That's for everybody who's in here. We'll send out an email either tonight or tomorrow that'll have a little bit more of the breakdown for the Cornelian. I don't know if you want to share the slides with everybody as well. That may be something that we could add in that also. But I will make sure that we send something out to all those in attendance for the Cornelian Scholarship.
We have one last quick question. They say, does Rosemont have study abroad programs?
Yeah, so students can essentially go anywhere in the world. You'd work with our study abroad office, and we've had students go to the UK and to different parts of Europe, the Middle East. So pretty much the world is your oyster, and it really they want to make sure it's an educational experience. One of my favorite questions that James, our coordinator, asks students is like, where do you want to go and why? And if you answer something like, well, I want to go to Italy because of the food, he'll be like, well, how's that really apply to your educational journey? So they really do have an emphasis on having a priority on the educational piece, but a great office, great program, and would fully encourage anyone to take advantage of study abroad.
And
I don't,
sorry?
you don't put a cap on spots. There's a question about how many spots are available at Rosemont for study abroad. I don't think we put a cap on how many students, but certainly every year, each semester, we have long-term, short-term study abroad trips, in both for academic and service. So there are a lot of great opportunities.
Yeah, and that question applied to work study. How many work study spots are available at Rosemont? My question to you is, how many do you need? No, a work study is more so based on your eligibility for the program. So if it's determined from you completing the FAFSA that you are eligible for work study, then certainly we will do our best to place you with a job. We do prefer that students are placed with positions that are pertinent to your educational goals. So if you are eligible for work study, then we will do our part to make sure that you're placed with a job. I don't know if you guys want to go over some of these last questions that are popping up. Someone has a very important question. They want to know, how big are the windows in the rooms?
So all of that can be found on the housing inside of our housing website. But once we get closer to it, our housing department, ResLife, will shoot out some emails to make sure that everybody is well aware in case you want to bring AC units or anything along those lines. And then for the transcripts as well, I'll answer that on behalf of the admission side of things. Looks like somebody asked about for transcripts, college prep courses are just standard academic courses. Yes, that is correct. We look at college prep as your typical standard course in high school. And then there are obviously honors, which would be a little bit of step above, AP above that, and then IB as well. So there's more weight into those three course categories.
I would like to reiterate, again, um, the FAFSA will be available by December 31st. We will not receive any information until the end of January. So that means we will not be able to send out award packets until February sometime. So we're looking around the second week of February. So although you are completing your FAFSA in December, you will not receive anything from the college until around February.
And we have here, do you take foreign currency? I'm going to go ahead and say that you're going to probably need to convert your currency to US dollars in order to pay your out-of-pocket cost. Oh, I think admissions is answering that question. Perhaps I'm wrong. I'm going to stop talking.
I think you're spot on, Teresa. I see a question about placement exams. It depends on a lot on your transcript and your program you're going into. Some programs require a math placement, and others don't. And that's something you would know as you're coming into the college.
I'm not sure if you answered this already, John, when you were going over the Cornelian Scholarship, but it says how many may be eligible for the Cornish Scholarship. I think they might be talking about that.
Yeah. So students that are eligible have to have over a 3.0 GPA and have done the application prior to December 15th, I believe. I'm sorry, December 1st. And they'll review as many complete applications as they receive. Typically, on any given year, we might receive somewhere between 75 and 150 completed Cornelian applications.
John, I do believe that we've extended that just a little bit. The website now says January.
Very good. Even better.
Yeah. So if you're on the call and you haven't started that application, please feel free to submit that to us as soon as possible, and that way we can put you into the hopper with the rest of the applicants as well.
Okay, at the risk of taking up too much time in everyone's night, I think we are done with all of the questions. We had a last bundle there at the end, so I don't want to speak too soon. But if everyone, I see some participants have dropped off. Thank you, very informative. I'm going to take that as them being done with the questions. And you all have a happy holiday as well. So we're going to end our session here. Again, thank you everyone for joining us, for spending your time with us, for entrusting us with your education in the future. So everyone have an excellent night.
Bye-bye.